We making Pico money. Big day, about to throw back on China. Need some Dfs and Westbrook and I find some. League of Legends got the sheet with all the lineups and all the stats that you need to get the time up. League of
First slate of the year. Winner, winner. We on top. All right. Had to do it. So yeah, day one was a winning day. Scored 595 points with my best lineup. I only planned on making about 10 lineups, but I ended up doing, I think, 20 something, 22. And the reason that happens is because once the starters are announced, you kind of see like what kinds of rosters can I make with the available players, and there were a lot of EDG lineups that I liked, even though I thought OMG had a realistic chance of winning that matchup. So I'll go over a few things. First, I'll go over my lineup. So even though I thought that Top Esports was definitely the favorite to win the matchup, and should have a big money line like that, just because like you really can't justify making it lower with the uncertainty around Juan Fung coming back to the team after his suspension, and the replacement of Sword Art with On. But if you're going to make 20-something lineups, it's always worth it to have some low-outcome stuff. And personally, I think that this was a low-outcome, a low percentage outcome, but that's why you make these lineups. So I had basically the same lineup two ways. So after sunning one, I was in a pretty good spot. And it's a really generic lineup. It's a 4-3 stack with ADC captain. I had Viper, Mako, and EDG as the comeback, and I used SFM instead of On, because I figured there's a chance that they win these matches, but with the type of supports that are being played right now, the support as a tank will often not have a ton of assists in these like blowout games. So I had Juan Fung, Bin, SFM, Angel, Viper, Mako, and EDG as the team slot. Bin looked really good today. Juan Fung looked really good today. But that's kind of what you expect. Like, that they have the chance to win that matchup. They've done it in the past. Doesn't mean that it was it doesn't mean it was a guaranteed win. I'm not going to pretend like it's what I projected either. So let's go through what I said yesterday. So this is what I posted in Discord. In Discord, just to be transparent. So I said, ultimately, I'm going to play both sides, as I said before, and will have much more exposure to Top Esports. If I was playing one lineup, I would go Top Esports. If I'm right about Sunning, I think the true odds are 70-30, even taking their strong performance into consideration last year. If On is an upgrade, it could be as high as 55-45 Top Esports favored. And if On is a downgrade, 90-10 Top Esports favored. So when I was making my lineups, I knew I was going to make 20-something lineups. Once I started making them, I realized I was going to make more lineups than I originally thought. And I was building lineups, a subsection of my lineups, with this mentality that On is an upgrade over Sword Art. Now, I don't think that the way that he played today shows that he is or isn't an upgrade or a downgrade compared to Sword Art. It's too small of a sample size. We won't know that for months. But that's the narrative I was following. So that's how you do it. That's how you can kind of convince yourself to make these different kinds of lineups. And then in the second match, I said EDG, and I'll do more in depth on this one because I didn't touch on this, I think, yesterday. I said, I'm shocked the odds are 80-20. Xiaoshang and Flandre are both good players, but Nu is as well and probably underrated. Flandre is more volatile, and EDG is a sub-risk for top either way. EDG, I don't think, made a sub the entire time, which is interesting. I'd say for DFS purposes, both options are about even, especially considering how they fit with Top Esports. There's also a potential sub-risk in the jungle. I like Jai Jai, but I don't know how Clear Love will be used. I've never seen Aki play before, so I'll assume an edge for EDG. Aki played okay, but not amazing. But OMG played well. I will be playing them in the future as well. Scout is the best mid in this match, but I think Gory and Wooming are both good, meaning if Gory ended up coming in as a substitute or something. And then Wooming, I think, is a good player. Didn't play well in game 1, but games 2 and 3, I think Wooming did a pretty good job. I think Hope and Viper are both better than Eric, but Eric was fine last year. Viper played really well today. I'm not surprised. I played Viper a lot last year, even though Hanwha Life was very bad, because I know Viper's a very good player, so that's not very surprising to me. And then I said Mako is definitely the known commodity, but Cold and Beifong are both fine. And Mako played okay. Cold played really well too. So at least at points, Cold played really well. So I said there is no way OMG should be a 20% underdog. I think it's much closer to 60-40. I'll be playing OMG heavily and use Top Esports EDG as a hedge because I think those are going to be the most heavily owned teams. The thing that happened when I was building my lineups is that I started building a lot more EDG lineups than I anticipated because the EDG players were mispriced because they were projected to be the substitutes. So all of them gave you a discount and you could make a lot of really high quality lineups. So I'm not going to sit here and say like I thought OMG should be like 50, 60, 70% of your portfolio of stuff. It's just once you see those numbers, like you can get 600 savings on EDG starters, you kind of have to you have to kind of pivot. So that's basically that. Let's go to the lobby and I'll get the next slate. So we have 2 more games tomorrow. Like I said, even though I won today, I'm not going to pretend like I like 2-game slates. I hate 2-game slates. It's just not as interesting in any way, in my opinion. So last night, if you bet on Suning, it was a plus 400 dog. I didn't do it. I wouldn't blame anybody if they did. I thought OMG was actually a pretty good bet last night. I didn't make that bet though. Tomorrow we have World Elite against Rogue Warriors and JDG against Invictus Gaming. So let's go to my tier lists. All right. So we have World Elite and Rogue Warriors. I have World Elite a tier above Rogue Warriors, but the way that this line is set makes it seem like they would be 2 to 3 tiers higher, and a lot of people are very high on World Elite. I understand why they are. I like the core of World Elite, and I think that they potentially made upgrades to their roster, but I don't think that they're a minus 500 favorite. So I would, if I was going to put a real life bet on the game, I would probably be on the Rogue Warrior side. For DraftKings, we need to see how the teams fit together before we can make a decision on like total exposure to them. And then JDG against Invictus Gaming. I think JDG is the first or second best team in the league probably, but I think Invictus Gaming is third or fourth. The interesting thing about Invictus Gaming is that my perception, I don't know if this is correct or not, is that the people who play DraftKings don't like Invictus Gaming because they don't perform very well. They didn't perform well last year, but I think that was an anomaly. I think that Invictus Gaming will be much better this year. Because like even just regressing, the positive regression should get them back to like winning some slates for some people. That's basically it. So let's go into the matchups. I'm gonna get the league PD up on the screen just so I am 100% confident, because I know that Breathe is a new player on the team, but I think it's just a name change of Curse. So just want to confirm that. Okay. Yeah, okay. That's Curse. Beishang. Shanks is the presumed starter. I'm not 100% positive on that. Jiaomeng and missing. And then for Rogue Warriors, we have Ziv, who came over from AHQ. And AHQ actually disbanded, which was pretty surprising. I guess that's why he left. Haro, I like Haro a decent amount. Forge, Betty, and Kellen, and then Chow Chow. So I think Rogue Warriors is probably underrated right now. I think Ziv is a solid player. Ziv was the focal point for their team, I think, for a few years. So definitely someone who understands how to carry the game, which is something that not every top laner is capable of doing at the professional level. Haro is a very interesting player that I like a lot. A good champion pool as a carry jungler. And also, when we have Beishang against Haro, we have 2 carry junglers, so that kind of makes it more volatile in terms of like the bad outcomes that we can see. Because if it's a carry jungler versus a carry jungler, you can get into a spot where it's like 12-4, and the carry jungler on the losing team just stops trying to make plays, and that'll be an issue for DraftKings scoring. But Breathe against Ziv. I think most people will say that Breathe is much better than Ziv. I don't think that's true. Breathe is definitely a good top laner, though. So, like, when it's going to be Breathe against Zoom, I'll be saying Breathe is better than people think, because Breathe against Zoom, while it is Zoom favored, it's much closer than people probably think. Or Breathe against Noguri. I think that while obviously Noguri is one of the best top laners in the world, Breathe is very, very good as well. So Breathe is probably not a top 5 in the LPL right now, but close. Because there are a handful that I would definitely prefer over Breathe, but not by a gigantic margin. So I think it's a good spot where potentially Ziv can carry against Curse, who is now Breathe. But Breathe had some really good matches last year. Beishang against Haro. I love both of these junglers. I think that they're both very good. I think Beishang is very good at a lot of the carry champions from last split, and is probably better than Haro. So, like, stylistically, they're a similar style, and even though I like them a lot, I do realize that Beishang is better than Haro at the playstyle that they both prefer. So that's going to be kind of an issue. And Beishang is also very good at Echo. I don't know if they're going to play Echo on stage, but it's a good option right now. Then we have Shanks. I think it's going to be Shanks against Forge. Forge is coming over from Vici Gaming, I think. Let's just make sure. Because they were stuck behind Zika, who I think is a very good player. Yeah. So I can't really blame Forge for getting their spot taken by someone like Zika. But I don't know anything about Shanks. So I think people are just high on World Elite. That people loving World Elite is probably going to be enough to get me a decent amount of exposure to Rogue Warriors. And then Zhao Meng against Betty. Again, people are going to say Zhao Meng is a lot better than Betty. I think probably better than Betty, but Betty had a pretty bad year last year. I think they underperformed relative to expectations, like filling in for Uzi, basically. So the negativity is probably too high because they took Zwuji's spot. So that there is something to be said for that. I know a lot of people probably like Zwuji a decent amount from last year. I'm surprised nobody picked up Zwuji. They did play well. Interesting. And then missing in Chow Chow. So Chow Chow had their spot taken by Yu Yanja on Top Esports. But Chow Chow still probably right around league average. So that's the thing with the LPL is there are a lot of players that are good enough to be in the league, and then you have a lot of players who are very, very good. So then it's kind of like, how do the very good players match up against one another? Like, who has the matchup they can take the most advantage of? So like I said, it's definitely World Elite favored. I would be personally more likely to make a bet, like an outright bet on Rogue Warriors than on World Elite, because I think there is some value there. And if you're consistently betting underdogs that you think there's value on, it's going to be a lot easier to make money than betting on big favorites. So that's always something to watch out for. Yeah, have to give the edge to World Elite for DraftKings as well. It's a 2-game slate. You're going to get pieces of every team if you run multiple lineups. So that's really what it comes down to for this matchup. And let's do JDG versus Invictus Gaming. So JDG, I do think that JDG is probably the first or second best team in the LPL. I still think that Top Esports is first or second as well, even though they lost to Sunning. Going into that match, I thought to myself, I think Top Esports will win. I think Top Esports is the better team. Sunning won, but I still think Top Esports is the better team in the long run. I love Sunning's playstyle. Huan Feng is a very good player, and Jackie Love kind of showed that they still have the propensity to kind of like throw leads away and stuff like that, which is never going to change, and it's not the kind of thing that should change because those close the decisions that Jackie Love makes when the game is really close allows them to win more games than they should, and then gives away some games. So I'm completely fine with that mentality. But let's get back into this one. So JDG against Invictus Gaming. Zoom against the Shy. Zoom is considered one of the 3 best top laners in the world. I think Zoom is very good, but Zoom is not exponentially better than the Shy. The Shy is still very good. The Shy is another player who is willing to make themselves look stupid in order to try to win a game that's already lost, and it's the right way to play. So I know that the range of outcomes is much more narrow for Zoom, which is why people will roster him at a much higher percentage. But the Shy is a really good player. Just had a pretty tilted year last year. Kanavi against Shun. I assume it's Shun until I hear otherwise. That's how I'm gonna say it. Kanavi, probably a top 5 jungler in the world. Isn't perfect for this meta. I don't know if they play Talia, which is apparently important. I'm sure that Kanavi can play Talia, Pantheon, Graves. Like, they do play these champions, but Kanavi's really better when it's not a true carry, not a hard carry meta. So it's a weird balancing act because going into last season, you would assume Kanavi is one of the best junglers in the world, can carry games on their own. Now they get more farm and more resources. The difference is that when that used to not be the case, their playstyle was more unique. Now it's a little bit more run-of-the-mill with how people are treating their junglers. But still, Kanavi's amazing, so that is a huge advantage in the jungle, unless Shun surprises everyone and is like much better than everyone thinks. Xie and Yagao, or Rookie. I think Rookie's better than Xie and Yagao. I don't know if Xie is going to continue to be the starter, but again, this is why I feel justified in how I talk about these players a lot of the time, because I think if you ask people during the end of last year, middle of last year, who's better, Xie or Yagao, most people are going to say Yagao. They're going to say Yagao is one of the best mid laners in the league. Yagao is never one of the best mid laners in the league, in my opinion. I thought Xie was better. I still think Xie is better. So I'm not as surprised as a lot of people are that Xie took that spot. Like, people forget Xie was like the best player on an up and coming team filled with very young players, and then just like transferred a couple times. So that kind of thing happens. They get lost in the shuffle. Loken and Puff. So like Loken, I'm not as high on Loken as most people are, but I still think Loken is the better player. Like Loken relative to their position, considering compared to Yagao relative to their position. So I'm not surprised that Mystic has been unable to take Loken's spot. I'd be shocked if Loken gave up time to Mystic. Mystic's just not a high quality player in my opinion. Invictus Gaming still has Puff, who will most likely play, and then I'm assuming Baolon's going to play. Lu Mao's a very good player. So I think that I will probably have a decent number of lineups with exposure to the Shy or Rookie. Maybe a game stack situation, because JDG against Invictus Gaming, honestly, both of these matches could get out of control, where it's like 25-24 or 25-21, and it happens in like 2 games, and then it ends up being a 3-game series, and like both teams just score a ton of points. I could definitely see something like that happening. I think the fact that Zoom is going up against the Shy increases Zoom's ceiling, because like I said, the Shy is willing to die 10 times in lane if they think it's going to give their team a chance to win, by like split pushing and creating chaos on the Rift. So yeah, if Shie is as good as I think Shie is, JDG will be one of the 2 best teams in the LPL for the entire year. So that's pretty exciting. Don't really have much else to say. The line for JDG and Victus Gaming is insane. I think that JDG should be a bigger favorite than 135. The only reason this number is this way is because Invictus Gaming is a very popular team. So if I had to recommend picks, I would say I prefer the Rogue Warrior side. Not sure if I'm going to end up making that pick, and then I prefer the JDG side. I need to check the apps that I have on my phone, because I wanted to put in a bet yesterday, but I got drunk, so I didn't. I wasn't like fall over myself drunk, but I had a couple drinks while I was making lineups and recording some stuff for the Infinity Edge. But a good day 1, a very good day 1. We're in the green. It'll give me some money to throw around at some of these other contests. And again, it's going to be very difficult to replicate my success from last year. I'm just going to try to be smarter when I play LPL slates, because I last March or May, like March, April, May, I threw away a lot of money just trying to compete with everybody with bigger bankrolls than me. So the goal is to be more process oriented than last year, even though I was very process oriented, just more process oriented than last year. I'm not going to win every slate, but I will win some slates, and it feels great. So thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you later.